G'day Flosstube, Anna aka Moranalis, back with another stitching update. It is Friday, April 16th. It's Friday and I'm not working. How cool is that? Yes, enjoying having my Fridays off again. Welcome to anybody who is new. Welcome to anybody who's returning. If you are new, this is a channel all about cross stitch. So if you're not into cross stitch, well, have a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn a new cool hobby. This week I have only 2 projects to show you. The last couple of weeks have been a bit chaotic, so haven't changed things up much. I have been pushing towards a finish on Oliver's stocking. You will see some awesome progress. In fact, why don't we just jump into it, because there's really no point in dilly-dallying, is there? And there will be just a minor bit of stash at the end that I forgot from before. So, Oliver's stocking. This is a Stony Creek stocking. Called Coastal Lighthouse, I believe. It was from an issue about 2 years ago. Apologies in advance. Coughing's gotten quite a bit worse again in the last couple of days. I don't know. Something about this time of year. Anyway, not getting distracted. Stocking. You can see it's almost finished. His name is in this ribbon. I've subbed that out. It was originally a Weeks Dye Works, I think, thread, very greeny, like these trees. We've used Dinky Dye's Rainforest, which is much closer to these, the trim, the bricks, the siding in the house. Words are hard, guys. So, as it stands, give you some close-up detail. You can see I've done the scrolly leaves and stuff in there. I've done all the back stitching up until about where that last top piece goes. There's more back stitching to be done in there. And there's a few snowflakes that need to go in around the ribbon area. The snowflakes were originally charted for white. Because this fabric's a fair bit lighter than the called for, I don't think you're going to see white very well, so I've actually swapped it out for a light blue snowflake. In the camera there's not much contrast, but in person you can see it. It's not super obvious, but Oliver's happy with it, so I'm happy with it. So to finish this, we have to do the snowflakes, we have to do a little bit more back stitching in there. We have beads and buttons. Now, the beads were very straightforward. I just went scrounging through my stash and I found some red, can we see? There we go, red beads. Put them up there. So I think that'll be all right. They're just little berry type things in the greenery. Little bit on the corally orangey side compared to the stitching, but there's not many of them. I'm calling that a good enough match. The bigger problem was, and I'm sure I mentioned this a video or 2 ago, there are, because it's a Stony Creek, there's Stony Creek buttons charted in here. So there's supposed to be like 3 stars that go on top of the tree. There's some larger berries, a cluster of 3 that go here. And there's another cluster of 3 somewhere else, I forget. And basically, given everything, I didn't want to wait for them to come from the US, and I couldn't find them any closer to home, so I thought, nope, not going to do it, not going to order them. I got an entire she shed full of stuff, including polymer clay to work with. So we are going to make our own buttons. So I made, I thought that was pretty good size, little gold stars to go on there. You can kind of see, there we go, little gold stars. This was my initial effort at the berries to go like in that cluster, which color wise and stuff it's fine, but it's way too big if you're going to fit 3 of those. You can't really see around my finger, they're too small for that. It's way too big if you're going to fit 3 in that little bowl as a cluster. So then I was digging around because this was my smallest punch and I didn't have a smaller one. And I thought, you know, how am I going to get tiny little circles? And I was trying to use a punch rather than, you know, roll out little bits and squash them down, which you could have done. But I was just trying to get the consistency of a punch. So in the end, as I'm looking through, you know, I tried pen lids and anything that's kind of circular that you could use as a pseudo punch. I found paintbrushes have a metal sleeve on the end. So I dismantled my paintbrush so I could use the sleeve as a punch. Now, I should have been a bit more choosy in the paintbrush I trashed, because that one, you can see, it's got a big gouge out of the one side. So it wasn't the world's best punch, but hey, it works. It's called improv. And I didn't have to wait for anything or stop my project. So that makes these tiny, tiny, put the other one for comparison, you know, much tinier little buttons to go on there. So I think those will be fine. But when I started this whole let's make buttons, first thing was to go, you know, find the clay and find all that stuff that I haven't used for ages. And I found I had just sort of a small handful of scrap gold that was perfect. So I just mashed up all that gold together and conditioned it and got it ready to go. And basically decided those materials aren't getting used. So I might as well turn that whole bit of scrap clay into buttons, because then at least they might get used for something. You know, obviously a few will get used on here, but they might be more useful than sitting around as scrap clay. So in the end, I ended up making a whole pile of buttons, and I will insert a few images basically of, you know, the process, rolling it out. A trick if you are using cutters, if you just, you know, have a rolled out piece of clay and try and cut with one of these sort of things, inevitably the clay gets stuck in the bottom of it and you can't get it out. So put a thing of saran wrap over the top of your clay, and then you'll find that you can punch all these things and the saran wrap will basically keep it from sticking into the punch. So you can just keep punching away. It does get a bit fiddly because the punch will cut the saran wrap to an extent and trash it, and then you're picking little bits of saran wrap off your buttons, but you know, it works. Yeah, so I just basically cut out an absolute heap. The ones that I don't use will get divvied up and sent around, made into little packages that will go in a goodie bag at the retreat I am going to at the end of next month. So yeah, if you're coming to the retreat at the end of May, look for the buttons. I made them. Yeah, so I made essentially just enough of the tiny ones because they were so fiddly that I'm hoping I will have enough for my stocking. I should. They're the most likely to have problems getting a needle through. But I made more of the big ones to put in those bags for the retreat. So that was a pretty good exercise. I did think about the original Stony Creek buttons that were called for, the red ones, were meant to have glitter finish on them. I know somewhere around here I have liquid clay that I could, and red glitter. I could give these a glitter finish, but A, I can't find the liquid clay, and B, don't think I'm gonna worry about it. So they're gonna be non-glitter for this stocking. So hopefully we shall be able to make really good progress and maybe knock that stocking out before Mania, so that at least one of the two I had hoped to do before Mania is actually done. Oh, little random tidbit. Last weekend we were off, we took the kids on a family holiday. Our Christmas present to the kids this year was to go take them to the Great Barrier Reef, because they're getting to the age where, they're starting to leave home. We figured can't have kids growing up in North Queensland and never having gone to the Barrier Reef. So we took them all the way out there. So I don't know how many kids can say that, but Oliver's stocking has been all the way out to the Great Barrier Reef and back. And yeah, didn't get much stitching while we were out there because I was too busy playing in the water, but it stitched while we arrived, and the crew was getting the boat ready before they'd let us off. So, it was stitched at the Great Barrier Reef. Can't imagine there's too many other stockings out there. Little boys with stockings, I can say that. Yeah, so I think that's everything for the stocking. Let me get rid of all those buttons. The only other project I worked on this week was the Aura of Autumn. Now I will have to insert a picture of what it's going to look like. This is a Leonid Afimov charted by Artecy. Eventually I will do all 3 panels. But at the moment, I'm just working on the one with the park bench. And in fact, because it's in the Q-snap, you can't actually see all that much. But you can see just the top little bit of the park bench. So I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I might have had one baby page done over here, but I've basically been working on about 2 columns next to it, but I don't think it's quite as wide as the whole thing you see. Maybe from about there across. So just, this is mostly, in the evenings when the kids have telly going sort of project. I will sit in my chair in the house and work on it. It's also a good project because it's in the Q-snap. I can try and force myself to stitch two-handed. It's not my natural way of wanting to stitch. However, it is it's easier on my sore elbow if I do that sometimes, because my dominant elbow can just stay put and the other one can take some of the grief for a while. So this is a 32 count Murano. Actually, it's exactly the same fabric as Oliver's stocking, and it's an even weave. Yeah, so just plugging along. It's one of those real mindless, I can't be bothered to think about much sort of stitches. But it's been sitting in my trolley for the last while, so trying to work on it. I was hoping, I had grand ideas of finishing a whole page. Clearly not going to happen. I think I got 3 full more columns before that page will be done. And you will see that this is actually a new Q-snap, so I don't have a cover for it. So I got fabric hanging everywhere. And I have an 11 by 17 Q-snap that I bought as well for my map. And I didn't want to pull the map out without having a Q-snap cover, because that's got acres of fabric and that's going to go everywhere. So then I decided, well, I've got plenty of scrap fabric, I've got elastic, we should make some grime guards. So that's the other thing I've been doing this out of. This fabric, I think it was a bed sheet, but it was one of my early experiments in playing with ice dyeing, and I just threw it in the scrap fabric bucket, and it was never going to get used, so now it's been used. So I will post a link to the tutorial that I based this on. I think it was threadbare from memory. I'll post a link to the one I used in the description box. Not hard, it's essentially a big tube of fabric with elastic down either side. This was meant to fit the 11 by 17 Q-snap, and I don't know whether it's because the measurements are a bit sus or my measuring was a bit sus. Could be the latter. Would not claim it wasn't. But I think it's a bit too snug on the 11 by 17. So I think, given this has got plenty of extra fabric too, it's a bit loose, but not overly loose on the 18 by 8, not 18, 11 by 11. So I think I'm going to have to, really going to have to do something about the memory card on this phone. No idea where I was up to, other than I am going to use this Q-snap on the 11 by 11 and do another one with longer fabric to reach farther around on the 11 by 17. Particularly since I want, you know, the map that I want to use it with, it's got acres and acres of fabric. I want extra give in the system for that specific project. So, and I don't think it's too loose on this. The only downside is that I've already cut the bits of elastic for a smaller Q-snap that no, I don't think I'll use them. But never mind, they'll get used for some other project another day. I do have acres of this bed sheet fabric that I ice dyed ages ago, left to work with. So we will do that. Other than that, the only other thing I was going to show you guys, my dreadful, dreadful children, a package showed up in the mail and they said, "Oh, Mom, these are seeds." And they just put it in with my husband's seeds. And turns out when I went to go do the seeding and open up these seeds to do the seeding, they weren't seeds at all. They were beads for this one's Tahiti chatelaine and the Hawaiian Garden chatelaine. There you go. So, yeah. The stinkers were hiding my treasures. Dreadful, dreadful children. Anyway, excuse me. That is it for me. I hope you all have a great couple of weeks. I think I will probably try and come back for one more video before we kick off the vlogs for Mania. That would seem to make sense. So, I will see you then.